My name is Daniel, and we lived in a compound of 5 apartments. There was this woman who lived in the compound called Cynthia. She was living alone without a husband or a child, even though she was 40 years. One thing shocked me since I found out that she was 40 years was that she doesn't age. Every day she looked like a 22-year-old girl. I was close to her because I normally run errands for her, though I was stubborn, and that is why most of the people in the compound hated me. But Auntie Cynthia didn't see anything wrong in me. She will always say that men are meant to be like that, and I love her for that, for accepting me. Auntie Cynthia was not just only my neighbor, but she was a teacher in my school. I was in primary 5 while Auntie Cynthia teaches primary 6. Our house was not far from our school, so some people, if not everyone, knew our houses. So she normally sent some people to go to their home and get her anything she needed. One day, after school, I came back home and found out there was no one at home, and our door was locked. I decided to go and wait for my mom at Auntie Cynthia's place. Auntie, good afternoon. Please, can I stay in your place? My mother is not yet back. Why not, Daniel? You can, my dear, she answered in a very loving and caring tone. She immediately ushered me into her sitting room. I was surprised because I never imagined her sitting room to be so beautifully decorated like this. Being the first time of visiting her, I decided to walk around the sitting room to feed my eyes with beautiful decoration. While doing so, I discovered that there was a tall standing mirror close to the television with red frame and skull designs on it with black flowers surrounding it. I was captured by the design of the mirror, so I went close to it to have a clear view of it. But I was cut short by an evil smell coming from the mirror, which I could not tell why. I was about to touch the mirror when Auntie Cynthia shouted from where she was sitting, "Don't touch it!" I became afraid immediately, seeing how terrified I was from her shouting. She walked towards me, panting my back, saying that she doesn't like people touching that mirror because it might fall down and break. I gathered some courage to ask her why the mirror was so dear to her. She said it was a gift from her mother before she died. Hearing that made me to fall pity for her story, but something inside of me told me that something was not right about the mirror. As I was about to leave, my eyes caught the image on the mirror. What I saw made me scream in fear. Lo and behold, I saw an old haggard woman holding me from behind the same way Auntie Cynthia was holding me. I ran out of the house with fear, leaving my school bag. I ran to our backyard, shivering with fear, and to my utmost surprise, Auntie Cynthia didn't run after me to know what made me scream and run out from her house like that. And that was when I concluded that there was more to Auntie Cynthia than just a physical eye could see. Few minutes later, after recovering from the shock of everything that happened, I decided to check if my mother was back. Thanks to God, my mother had returned from work. I immediately greeted my mom and went straight to my room, still pondering over what happened at Auntie Cynthia's place. It was later in the evening, while I was washing my school uniform, that she returned my school bag. On seeing her, I wanted to run, but running away will not solve anything. So I decided to stay after all. My mother was at home. Daniel, are you alright? What made you run out of my house like that? Auntie, it's nothing, no. It's just that I remember that I left my football boot outside before coming to your place, and I thought it must have been stolen. That was why I screamed and ran out to check if it was still there. I responded to her, trying to act as normal as I could. Before she left, she gave me a look of You better keep whatever you saw there in a secret," and left. From that day onwards, my closeness with Auntie Cynthia started dropping bit by bit, and she didn't even care because I think she knew that I know something about her true identity. Things became worse when different students started dying in our school monthly, and I became afraid of going to school. But I had to because I was then in primary six, about to sit for my common entrance examination, and having Auntie Cynthia as my form teacher made everything worse because she now sees me as an enemy and finds fault in anything I do in class. Just few months to our examination, Chris, who was next to my seat, slumped and died on his way to school. That was when I became suspicious of Auntie Cynthia because 3 days before Chris's death, Auntie Cynthia sent him to her house to get her English note that she forgot at home. And I could remember how Chris told me about a beautiful mirror he saw on our auntie's sitting room, how he touched it and even wished they have such mirror in their house. So I concluded that Auntie Cynthia had a hand in Chris's death, but didn't tell anyone. I started monitoring Auntie Cynthia for 6 days. No result, but I didn't give up. On that night, on the seventh day, at around 2:30 a.m. midnight, I came out to ease myself in our backyard, only for me to hear incantation coming from Auntie Cynthia's apartment. I immediately fastened up to know what was going on in her apartment. I tiptoed to her window to have a clear view of what was going on. What I saw was still a mystery to me up to date. I could see an old woman from the hole in her window chanting some incantations before the mirror, looking exactly like the same old woman I saw holding me in the mirror that day I went to her apartment. Not long after the incantation, a bowl of blood appeared from the mirror, which she collected and mentioned Chris's name 3 times before rubbing the blood on her face. Immediately she finished rubbing the blood on her face, the old woman turned to Auntie Cynthia. After seeing the old woman turn back to Auntie Cynthia and every other incident that took place there, I realized that she was the one that killed Chris and might also be responsible for the monthly death in our school. I later returned to my room but couldn't sleep again throughout that night till dawn because I was afraid she might appear and kill me. At daybreak tomorrow morning, on my way to school, I saw Auntie Cynthia sweeping her apartment, and to my utmost surprise, she was much younger and beautiful than yesterday. That was when I knew she uses the blood of those she killed to renew herself from aging. I promised myself to stop her from killing another person in our school because as it stands, I am the only person that could stop her because I am closest to her and see what she does. I knew it was going to be a tough mission for a small child of my age, but I couldn't sit and watch her kill my fellow pupil. So I started taking record of her and finding way to stop her from killing another person next month. 3 days before the same day Chris's died last month, she called my best friend Emma at break period to go to her house and bring her food she forgot on the table in her sitting room, knowing fully well that once Emma goes to her house successfully, that he must die. So I had to act fast to save my best friend and equally stop her evil mission. I immediately took permission from her to go and buy snacks outside the school. While she was talking with Emma, I quickly rushed outside the school gate to wait for him. Just few seconds of waiting, Emma came out running out of the school compound. I stopped him and immediately switched to my plan. Emma, where are you going to? Ah, Daniel, I'm going to Auntie's house to get her food for her. Emma quickly answered, about to dash out. I immediately offered to escort him, since we live in the same compound. On reaching our compound, I switched to plan B. I told Emma to come and see the new movies I got so he could take some time off because he once complained to me that his mother no longer buy new movies for him. So I used the opportunity. On hearing that, he immediately asked for me to show him, which I did and offered to get our auntie's food in her apartment for him while he makes his choice of the movie he wanted to watch. I rushed to our backyard, took the same mirror just like the one in auntie's room, which my carpenter friend made for me. Though I lied to him that we were asked to do it and bring it to school, that we use it to go on a project quiz. I took it to her sitting room and replaced it with the one I brought and took Auntie Cynthia's own to my hideout at our backyard. I quickly rushed back and took the food I came for and ran back to our own apartment to meet Emma so we can go to school before she will send someone to come and look for us. Emma handed me the movies he wanted, which he came to collect after school immediately. I immediately kept them separately and we ran back to school because we had already wasted enough time. After school, I was extremely happy because I had accomplished my mission. Immediately I reached home, I went to my hideout with my mother's olive oil to destroy the mirror, but to my utmost surprise, the mirror was nowhere to be found, and I became afraid. I began to think what might have happened to the mirror because I knew no one saw me where I was hiding it. Daniel, Daniel, I heard Auntie Cynthia calling me. On hearing her, I felt like the ground should open and consume me because I had already concluded that she was the one that took it back to her room. But on a second thought, I realized that if she was the one that took it, she wouldn't call me physically to ask of it. So I went to answer her. Take this book and share it to everyone at school, she said to me, and left for her apartment. On hearing that nothing went wrong on the missing mirror, I became a bit relieved, but I know more task was ahead of me because I didn't see the mirror to hold it and destroy it on my own end. Later that evening, when I was dusting our table and television, I realized that Emma forgot to take the movie he selected, so I decided to take it to him. On my way to Emma's house, I met his mother heading to the market. Mama, good afternoon, I greeted. Ah, Daniel, where are you going to? I'm going to your house to see Emma, I replied. Okay, my son, he is at home, she said to me and left. When I got to Emma's house, I realized that he was taking his bath. So I informed him that I brought him the movie he forgot to take. He directed me where to keep it in his room and also wait for him that he was almost done. I went to his room and dropped the movie. I went and told him that I'll be leaving immediately because my mother didn't know I went out and promised to come back tomorrow evening so that we could watch it together and also play together. On my way out of their compound, I became pressed that I had to rush to a nearby little bushy corner in the compound to ease myself. While urinating, I discovered that my urine was splashing on an object, making it produce some ceramic sound. As a child and their behavior, after urinating, I started clearing the place with my hand without minding the urine to know where it was. After clearing it a bit, I was taken back by shock, making me to fall. There in front of me was laying Auntie Cynthia's evil mirror. I started pondering how come and what it was doing there. It was then later that it occurred to me that Emma might have followed me that day I went to exchange the mirror and took the mirror from me from my hideout, thinking I wanted to steal it and sell it. Without wasting time, I immediately carried the mirror to a bush close to our compound and hid it. Rushed home, I took my mother's olive oil and went back to the bush. I sprinkled the olive oil on the mirror, after which I shattered it with hammer. I came along with. I went home with mixed feeling, which is I was happy that I had destroyed the mirror, but also afraid she might come for me. Around 2:30 a.m. midnight the same day, she used to renew herself. I sneaked out to know the outcome of my action. I positioned myself well at her window to have a clear view. I could see her skin changing to an old woman. She slowly walked to the front of the mirror and started her incantation, after which she invoked the bowl to appear. But nothing happened. She tried again. Also still nothing happened. Now I could see the anger mixed with fear of her identity being revealed. I was filled with joy of a winner, so I decided to go back to my room. I was about to turn. My leg kicked an iron bucket beside me, sending a shattering noise everywhere. I turned to run, but it was too late. Auntie Cynthia immediately appeared at my front, still in an old woman's form, floating in the air. I froze immediately I saw her. Seeing the fear in me, she started moving towards me. I tried to move back, but it seems like a spiritual force was holding me at a particular spot. I became more terrified than before. Grabbing my neck, she started strangling me. I tried to shout, but no sound came out of my mouth. As I was about losing my last breath, I remembered the olive oil in my pocket, which I came with, in case anything went wrong. I immediately reached out for it with my last strength and splashed it on her. She immediately disappeared. I fell down, hitting my head on the iron beside me. While gasping for air, I managed to find my way back to my room. After applying first aid on my head, I dozed off. The next day, I woke up and started preparing for school, but there was no sign of Auntie Cynthia, so I gathered courage and decided to check on her. I searched everywhere, but didn't see her. That was how Auntie Cynthia disappeared to date, and I'm still happy that I saved my best friend, despite the fact that he never knew the sacrifices and the risks I took for him.